Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the show. My name is Eric, and today we have a very special guest, Chief Executive Officer of the Superhumans Center, Olga Rudnieva. She helps thousands of people impacted by the war in Ukraine, and we're very honored to have you on the show today. Olga, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for inviting. It's my honor to be here and talk about what's happening in Ukraine.
Yeah, very, very important. First and foremost, before we get into any questions, how are you doing?
I'm fine. Still alive, which is a victory in Ukraine after 4 years of full-scale invasion. So fine. I'm very satisfied with the end of the year, and we have very optimistic vision of our future at the country because we're still fighting. We're still alive.
Yeah, it's with people in my family who are Ukrainian, it's an everyday experience for us to try to keep up with what's real and what's not real, obviously, and to try to make sure that we do whatever we can to stand with Ukraine as they navigate through this just a horrible time. So in terms of you, how do you do it? I mean, with all that you see and all that you've experienced, and it must carry a ton of weight and responsibility, especially when no one's watching. How do you do that? Where's that strength come from?
It comes from the results. When you see people walking again, you meet people in a wheelchair, and in a week or two, they walk to you and they hug you, and this is amazing results. So you literally bring people back their lost ability to walk, to hug their kids, and it's very important now. These people were fighting for Ukraine, or they were civilians. They did nothing wrong. They just stayed at their houses, and bringing people back their lost abilities give you a lot of energy, a lot of strength to keep going. And we are all in Ukraine today have to do something to help the victory, to speed up the victory. If we are not at the front lines, we are doing something where we are, and this is my place. This is what I do with my team, and I think it gives us, it reduces our guilt, because we are not at the front lines.
Right. But I mean, there are so many warriors, both in uniform and outside of the war itself, just in the central. Like if you're looking at the front lines, where a lot of people just put their minds on what those soldiers and what those people are doing there on that front line, but they don't put a whole lot of, I mean, from our side, from out here, we don't see as much coverage as the heroes like yourself that are out there leading those almost invisibly in some cases outside of Ukraine. I think it needs to be a bit more, which is why we're doing the podcast, is to try to put focus on all things that are happening, both the reinvention of what people like yourself are doing for those in Ukraine, the ones that have been impacted by that. I mean, it's just amazing. And that you've reinvented this persona for so many people that were impacted by the war, from nearly broken to superhuman, as you've called them. And that's obviously the name of your center. How do you instill the idea of, hey, you can recover, you can be better, in those that have had so much grief and so much anger and experienced such trauma?
It's always our decision what we do with our trauma. Trauma can kill us or can make us stronger. So it's a decision. We are support for our patients. We basically show them the way. We tell them, listen, you can have a normal life. You can run the marathon again. You can swim Bosphorus. You can dance at the Dance with the Stars. And I just mentioned 3 of the events during this year that our patients did. And it's a choice. You can always choose your life, after the biggest trauma, after the biggest loss. What we are trying to say, listen, there is a way, and it's up to you which way you are taking. And most of our patients are strong enough, young enough, and brave enough to walk again, to run again, to conquer mountains, to do amazing things they haven't done before the injury. Of course, we do support them, providing with fantastic prosthetics, good psychological support, social reintegration. We do a lot of surgical works, a lot of evacuation works, just bringing them here. It's important, but we can't walk for them, and we
Right.
can't live their lives. We can only guide them. We can only provide them with everything necessary, and then they just have to make a choice how they're going to live the rest of their lives. And they don't have other lives but these lives. Losing your limb is not the end of your story. Sometimes it's the beginning of your story, and it's been
Mhm.
proven so many times by our patients.
Yeah, and that piece that you just mentioned about the limbs and how that's such impactful to the patient. I did read in some of the articles and, of course, on the website that one of the things that frightens some of the patients more than anything else is having to call someone and say, "This is what's happened."
Mostly they're afraid to tell their mothers
Mm,
because it's hard. You don't know how to say that. Mommy, I lost like a leg. One of our first patients, his mom found out from social media.
mm,
So she called him and she said like, okay, I know everything. You don't have to tell me which one, right or left. And he lost both of his limbs.
uh,
And he was like, Mom, I'm so sorry. It's both, and he still had to say that. So majority of guys say that, you can tell to everything, you can fight, you can be very brave, but it's so hard to say it to your mom. We have a patient who lost his arm and leg below the knee and below the elbow a
mm,
year and a half ago, and his mom still doesn't know. He calls her on video calls. He has a business. He's very successful, and I was like, how you managed to hide it from her? And he was like, when I call her, I just talk with her, using my
hmm
other side. So he wants to come to her when he's perfectly walking, when everything is fine in his life, just to show her that nothing has changed. She doesn't need to worry about him. I mean, he's just active as he used to be, even
hmm
better. Sometimes it's difficulties to say to their girlfriends and wives because they were the ones who said like, don't go to the front lines,
hmm
something bad will happen to you. And they're very much afraid that the moment they call, they will say, I told you. I
hmm
told you, don't do that. So when they never say that, they're like relieved, and they get all support needed
hmm
very often from their families, from our experience.
Yeah, I was, as I mentioned in my kind of a pre note to you before we got on the podcast, that I have a bit of veteran experience with the U.S. Army, and I remember going to Afghanistan and telling my mom everything was fine. Everything's going great. I'm going to play ping pong every day, and it was just this sense of, for me, uh, I didn't want her to worry. There was nothing much she could do if she was worrying. And I'm curious if part of that was also this fear of telling her that things were not always so good, and so but it's much different in this case for those that you helped than it was for me. I was not on the front lines doing that stuff. I was in the back making maps. That was kind of what I did. But uh, so, in terms of leadership, um, I don't know if you see yourself this way, but many do. That you're truly a national leader at the edge. You're right up front, making tremendous amounts of impact to all of those around you, and obviously beyond the borders. How do you encourage other organizations, NGOs, not and even maybe just ordinary people to help where there are obvious gaps, such as the one that you found and fulfilled?
Well, first of all, it's just not me. I do speak on behalf of Superhumans, but we have a fantastic team. It's
Mm-hmm.
three co-founders. Andrei, who was actually the author of the idea. I never came up with the idea of Superhumans. I would never, name it, the hospital Superhumans. I would never want to do anything with prosthetics and face reconstruction. So that was Andrei who called me back in April 2022, just 2 months after the full-scale invasion, and said, we have to do that. So it's a lot of work, and now we have a team of 500 people working on a daily basis. And
Mm-hmm.
I truly believe all of them are leaders of their directions, Even our nurses and cleaning ladies, they are leaders of what they do, because they are surrounding patients 24/7. They are the first who meet guys who are arriving here by evacuation, those who just got the trauma 2, 3 days ago, maybe several hours ago. They are the first to greet them, to do the first anesthesiology, to bring them food. They are the moms for them, basically saying, life goes on. It's not the end.
Hmm.
It's psychologists who go and speak to the patients for the first time when they arrive to the center. So I believe we are, in the center here and outside of the center, the whole Ukraine are superheroes for still standing, still fighting, and still believing in victory after so many years of fighting such a big enemy as Russia. So I wouldn't actually say it's me and I'm doing something extraordinary other people in this country do not do. I
Hmm.
mean, every person in this country is fighting his or her own fight. Somebody at the front lines, somebody at their houses without electricity, without water for several days, having children, providing for the whole family. So it's everyone has his own fight. That's how he lived during the war, and it's
Yeah.
just bigger challenges than you would have in a peaceful life.
Yeah. And it's one of those things that, as you're talking, I'm thinking about all the aspects of all of that. Obviously there are NGOs, there are organizations, there's the government, there are outside agencies that help, and there are partnerships and all good things like that. Um, in terms of, but going back to the center, um, and looking at the team and what you guys have built, there are some, in my experience, as recent as last week, where people have had an idea. They've had this, they felt they've had a calling to do something, not as grand as what you're doing there, but it could be anything. They were thinking about, oh, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. And then they create these imaginary obstacles into why they can't do them. And then I listen to your story, I read about you and what you guys have done. And you've had ideas, you've overcome all of these things on top of being at war and having the constant threat of attacks. It's just, I can't imagine the amount of commitment that it takes, the inspiration that it takes, the imagination and innovation that it takes to do what you're doing in the face of all of those things coming at you. And so how do you and the team talk about this in terms of, like what's our next big thing? What are we going to be doing next? And how do you address those challenges that you have?
Well, first of all, I think that war helped us a lot to move fast and to be so brave, because you basically every day you live your last day of your life and you want to live the best day of your life.
Hmm.
So you're not afraid anymore. You are not postponing things. I'll do that later one day, because you clearly hear explosions outside of your house. You know that the next rocket can hit your house, and next drone can land in your garden. So you don't wait, the clock is ticking and you can hear that clearly. So you just start doing things because there is no tomorrow. And we often say that war catalyzes a lot of things, and
Hmm.
it did help us to start act, acting. We knew that there's going to be a lot of people who will lose their limbs and who will have face trauma. Okay, what we can do about it? We knew that the Ukrainian healthcare system will be at the edge of its capacity very quickly because it wasn't built for the war at its territory. I don't think that single healthcare system is built for the war at its territory at this
True.
intensity. So we wanted to do something to help Ukrainian government, to help Ukrainian healthcare system, and we knew that we can do that, having our background, mine in charity, and Andre and Philip in business. So let's do something, and you start just acting, and you have this, trust. You have this hope is going to work out. So the idea and the dream was bigger than ourselves. And we just did what we had to do, moving one step in a day. We launched the first part of our center in 4.5 months from the moment we started reconstruction.
Mm.
So we started with a team of 5 people in April 2022. And 2 years later, we were a team of 500 people, having 300 patients on site. Just because we had to do something, we truly believe that we can do that and we have a role to play. And as we often say, that this project just had to happen, and we were very, instrumental. We were the hands, and we are
Yeah.
blessed to be the hands of this project.
It's for, at least from an American perspective, I want to put a kind of a spin on this. During the attacks of 9/11 back in 2001, I remember people saying, "Oh, we all have to work for each other. We all have to help each other." And during that time of crisis, people came together. And then it seems several years later, they've kind of gotten vanilla to it. It kind of faded. Um, and I'm hoping that does not happen. It has not happened from what I can see, for the Ukrainians and for those that support Ukraine. My little town in North Carolina, where I come from, that my mom and dad were at, that whole town supported Ukraine without any hesitation. There were flags flying every day all over the place, always organizing things. And then it just seemed to kind of fade away in a way. Less flags, less things going on. And how do you stay motivated? I mean, it seems it's kind of a rhetorical question, because it's obvious that you have to be motivated. There are these things that are happening, but when you close the doors, you're like, okay, another day is done. We're going to keep moving. And you've been helping these people for so long, and you've been helping people in general for more than 2 decades, in various important capacities. And so looking at that, does that experience in the way that you've helped people in the last 20 some odd years helped you prepare for what you're about to do tomorrow, what you're doing now?
Well, I believe that there are two categories of people. The first category is always saying, life didn't prepare me for that. Whatever happens, like I wasn't prepared. I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready for the snowfall. Life hasn't prepared me for that. And the other category, my whole life prepared me for that moment. So I'm the second category. I just believe that whatever I have tomorrow, I've been getting ready for that all my life before. And the moment the full scale invasion started, I was like, okay, that's time to act. Whatever I learned before, whatever I trained in myself, whatever, community I have around me, it's time to monetize it, to use it, and to act. So basically, because it's the most important battle in our life. It's battle for our independence, for our lives, for our right to be alive. So I think I was pretty ready for the battle of my life. I didn't fail myself. I wasn't scared, so I'm pretty happy. I found amazing group of people with whom we are still walking this walk. And by doing your work on a daily basis, seeing the results and seeing support from the outside world, yes, it's fading, but it's not your fight, guys. It's not your
Right.
war. You can't be motivated as Ukrainians because you just watch the news, and from your opinion, it's not too much happening. Another rocket attack in Ukraine, but for us, another rocket attack. It's no electricity for another 3 days, no water, kill people,
Mm.
the calling your friends, checking them. But it's our life. That's our reality. Your reality, is different. And from what you see is the same news from Ukraine. Another rocket attack, another person killed, another child life taken away. So it looks very similar. This series to you looks very similar, but they're very, very different to us because we are playing in this series.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it would be one of those things where the saying, walk a mile in another person's shoes is really fitting, because what we see in the news, one, it's sometimes questionable. whether it's authentic or not. Obviously, there's a lot of propaganda going on about what is real in this specific moment in time, and what's really happening versus what's perceived or what they want you to perceive. But I know that for those that really care, there are places to go find this true information about what's going on, both from the Ukrainian government, from organizations like yourself, what you guys do, and just doing a bit of research. I think too often people just see something and they go, "Oh, it's true," right off the bat, especially from a social media perspective. Um, and I think that in terms of how these revolving doors of your life has changed, and those of many, 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 many others. One minute you're living your life and you're doing your thing, and there's a pathway that you're walking, and the next minute this war starts in February of 22, and everything changes. And I think many people cannot grasp that, which is why one of the reasons we're talking to you. In terms of a leadership change, uh, how do you think that leadership has changed? Do you think that there is a specific type of leadership that's no longer acceptable in times of crisis like this? Because there are obviously varying degrees of that. So is there could you think about like how leadership changes from a peaceful world to
Mhm.
instantly?
Well, I think you just make quick decisions, and the speed of making decisions is more important than the quality of your decisions. You just don't have time to think, you just have to act. In a real time, in a normal, peaceful times, you can overthink, you can think, you can actually evaluate, do these hundreds of SWOT analysis. Shall we do that? Shall we not do that? And then, like you said, ending up like, well, not the right time. There is, the wartime and the crisis time is a time of quick decisions.
Mm-hmm.
When you just take the quick decisions and responsibility, you have to make quick decision and you have to be responsible for the decision you are taking. Okay, it's my responsibility. If it's not going to work out, just I will blame myself and you keep moving. So it's like basically like you see fire and you have to stop it. So you're not sitting and putting the charts up, the risk management. Shall we do that? Shall we take the cold water or hot water, or shall we call the helicopters? You just start acting, and I think this is a difference between the leadership of peaceful time and crisis time, that
Mm-hmm.
more responsibility that you're taking on yourself and the speed of your decisions. The rest is the same. I mean, the rest is the same.
Yeah. How do you filter out the noise? Like there's so much going
Mm?
on. And there's so many people telling you what they want, what they need.
I just don't listen to all people. I know what I need. I know what is my horizons of dreams and goals. And I move where I have to come. I mean, I have my, when you're just basically imagine a Google map and you're putting the end place where you have to arrive. I know that place,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm just moving, The route could be different, but if I listen to everyone, to everyone's advices, they don't know, my problems and my difficulties and my challenges. So basically, I'm listening to the advice of people who are in the context, who know something, experts. I ask for their advices. The rest of the people, thank you, but
Mm-hmm.
I know what I'm doing. So it's basically, yeah, it's a lot of noise, but you have to learn how to eliminate this noise and take everything which is not important and concentrate only on the things that are important for you.
Yeah.
But for that, you have to know what is important for you. And I think that the biggest problem of most of the people, they don't know what is important.
Very good point. I mean, that's true. There are priorities are often not in play. I think a lot of times leaders and people who just lead anything, it could be their general household. It could be a small organization, could be a large one like yours, with important duties and goals that they want to do. They don't have their priorities in order. And as you mentioned, they're kind of afraid to say no to things. I think a lot of people want to be the people pleaser when it comes to the organization of I want to I want everyone to feel like they're validated and that their ideas matter, and that's important to do. Of course, we know that, but at the same time, it could be it's. I wonder if it's more complex in your role than the typical organization outside of a stressful situation like this. But to make everyone feel like your idea is important, what you're doing is important, but it's on the burner, or we'll do that later, or whatever the case might be. It's trying to keep people motivated while moving in the right direction that you've got planned is difficult.
I mean, I think that the no is the best word in vocabulary, but you have to learn how to say no to yourself first. You
Mm.
have to discipline yourself. I mean, it's about when you learn how to say no to yourself, then you will learn how to say no to the rest of the world, because we basically know what is good, what is bad for us, but we keep doing bad things for us. You know, all of us, because it's a guilty pleasure. I'll do that and I want to be doing that tomorrow. I will stay late, I will drink another glass of alcohol, I
Hmm.
will just go do that, and buy another bag. The moment you learn how to say no to yourself, it's pretty easy, to say no to the rest of the world. Because my question to myself, does it take me where I want to arrive? If not, I'm not. I'm not saying yes to that. It takes my time, it takes my resources, and these resources are so much needed by those people who lost their limbs, who lost their faces. I can't fail them. So it's not about me. A lot of ideas are coming. Let's do that. Let's do that. Why don't you do that? Why don't you help these categories of people? I cannot help everyone. So I'm focused on what I have to do. And we know our goals, KPIs, and who we are helping and how we do that. So we just keep doing that. I have no difficulties to say no, neither to myself nor to the external world.
Yeah. There's a statement that I've used to use with some of the people that have worked for me, in the terms of that they would bring something or a problem or whatever it might be. And I would say to myself that the emotional currency or the effort currency that I'm going to spend on this is X. And do I need to do that? And will it give me a value return on that, and keep me from wasting time, or will it waste my time? Obviously, there are many things going on in the world of Ukraine that you don't have time to waste. And so I think you're exemplary in the fact that you can say no, that that you have that distinct understanding of exactly what it is you need to do to get things done. And there's no time to waste, of course. And the impact is a result of all of that. The positiveness that the people get, the positivity that people receive when they are rehabilitated, when they receive help, when they see a smiling face telling them in reassurance that things are going to get better, as you mentioned before. Um, and there's a lot every day, I think, in my imagination that you experience in over the course of all the time that you guys have done this, the things that you've personally done, things that you've seen, people that have visited, like the president of Ukraine. Um, the impacts are limitless in my mind. You have had so many of them. There have been positive ones and negative ones, I would imagine. What's one of the impacts? Share one of the impacts that you've had on a personal perspective on the work that you've done that kind of sticks with you.
I don't know. I just know that everything is possible, and I think it's the best positive impact on me. Because before the full-scale invasion, I had doubts that everything is possible. Now I know everything is possible. I think that the whole Superhuman Center is a mistake of survival. All of our patients, they're not supposed to be alive. Most of them were rescued by their comrades. Their rescue time was more than 5 and 6 hours. They were dragged from the battlefield for hours. They lost tons of blood. And now when they arrived here, and you see that it's a miracle that they are alive, and then somebody said this person will never ever walk again, and you see this person a year later walking without 3 limbs, having a normal life and doing a lot of sports, and you understand everything is possible. So I think that the biggest impact that Superhumans and the life during the war did for me is just believing that everything is possible if you believe in it, if you work as crazy on it, and if you're not giving up, if the difficulties come. And when you believe that everything is possible, everything is possible.
Yeah. there's a saying I heard several times over in the last month at least. I'm not sure why I'm getting this more often than I had in the previous parts of my life, but they say if you manifest it in your mind, you say it's going to happen, that it will eventually happen, good or bad. So always keep the positive thoughts going. And I think that that's exactly what you do by manifesting
That's
all of those.
true, but manifesting is not enough. You have to put a lot of work behind the manifest. A lot
Yeah.
of people manifested things and say it's going to happen, but did nothing for that.
Right.
I think that the manifest is fantastic. Number two, you have to believe in what you manifested in your head. A lot of people manifested something, but they didn't believe in it. And
Mm,
third, you start working on that. And work on that might take a month, might take a lifetime. And you have to be ready for that. You have to believe in your dream so much that you are ready to sacrifice the whole life to get to the point of your dream. So, and that's a big commitment.
it is.
And it's not because things are not happening, it's because we are not ready to give up so many things, so much time, and a lot of resources from outside. That's the only reason they are not, why they are not happening.
When you think about the terms or the sentence I've heard people say is, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. Um, and there are many people who have wanted to do what they deem as success. I want a fancy title, or I want to get a job on a position in my company at the corner of the office. I want to make a lot of money. I want to have nice things. But then they don't work for those things. Or I want to change someone's life, and they don't do what they have to do. Like you said, they don't put that framework in place to make sure all of that happens. Is where the true leaders like yourself really are separated from the wannabes. And I think that if you really focus and you really want to get something done, you have to put that groundwork in place and make sure you're committed to it and you show up every single day, regardless of what it is. And obviously, you exemplify that just in the work that you've done. And you and the center and everything that you guys do, you're not done. I mean, obviously, there's a lot coming in the future for you, both and I pray positive notes more than anything else. But what do you see in the future in terms of what you and the center are going to be doing? And then there's a secondary question I'll ask as well, is that how can those people that sit in state leadership roles, regardless of where they are, help?
Well, first of all, to great pity, Ukrainian territory is mined heavily. We are the most mined country in the world right now. Even if the
Mm,
war stops tomorrow, we'll keep getting patients for years from today. Kids will be stepping on mines, civilians will be stepping on mines. The size of mined territories is enormous in Ukraine. It's the size of Switzerland, or and the mining will take years. Also, we want to see how the trauma affects you in a long period of time. The war trauma, I mean, the mine and blast trauma, the drone trauma. We deal right now with with the acute pain, with the consequences of someone losing a limb a month or 2 months ago. We want to know what's going to happen to these people in 2, 3, 5 years from now. What kind of effect it'll have on their health. If someone didn't get any injury, which is very rare for the people at the front lines, they still will be affected by the war trauma in terms of psychological problems, in terms of social problems, in terms of other issues. They will still need rehabilitation and support. So we want to do that when the war is over. We want to do a lot of work in war trauma, see and research how it's going to affect people generations after today. It's a lot of work in face reconstruction that's going to last years after the person got the injury, because the face reconstruction is a very long and complicated process. It's done in stages. And all our patients who got prosthetics from us, they are returning patients because they lose gain, they
mm,
gain weight, so they are with us for the rest of their lives. We have a lot of children, regretfully, and kids are changing up to 35 prosthetics during their lifetime because they are growing so fast, meaning they will be coming to us like at school, changing their prosthetics because we need to fit the new parameter. Anyone can help. We are not using Ukrainian governmental funds because we truly believe that Ukraine has to spend money on fighting the fight. And anyone can help by spreading the word about what's happening in Ukraine, coming to Ukraine, stopping as superhumans and see the real consequences of war, but at the same time to see the resilience of Ukrainians. Anyone can help us financially or with their resources. If you are an expert in doing reconstructive surgeries and you have a free time, please come over in Ukraine and work with our team. If you don't, if you know nothing about the surgery, if you don't have social media that can affect a lot of people, send us a couple of dollars, and we will try to help some people.
And then in terms of the future for, I would say in the next month or so, are you do you have anybody coming to visit? I know you've had organizations from outside of Ukraine come in and visit and spend the day. What do you got on the calendar for the next in the new year?
We have visitors on a daily basis. We have a job that we are working part-time as a museum, and our patients know that because they are example of resilience and coming back to normal life. So we have people coming from all over the world, journalists, school kids, politicians. We have these people on a daily basis in Superhumans Center, and we want them to see the real life stories, chat with our patients, learn more about how they were wounded and how they see their future, because it's very important to understand that Ukraine and Ukrainian power psychology right now. So we have guests on a daily basis. The big names brings more awareness, not to Superhuman Center, but for the whole country.
Mhm.
That's why big names are important for us, because we can bring Ukraine back to the first pages of the newspapers. And we are working hard to bring as many interested in Ukraine people as possible.
When you said big names, I mean, doing research before we got the chance to speak, there were obvious names, the president, of course, Richard Branson, and many others that have followed in. And it's just amazing the impact that you guys are making, that you strive to go out and get the attention to change what some see is unchangeable. I mean, there are some people who are the naysayers that believe who knows how this will end, and they've come up with some pessimistic outcome. But we continue to be inspired by the work that you do and everybody around you. And believe it or not, I mean, I don't know whether you guys know this, but it's very inspiring to watch and to learn these stories, which is why I do what I do here. Because it's just one of those things. Like, I never thought that I'd be able to speak directly to people who make the impacts that they do, and then on top of that, just watch from the outside what it takes to be Ukrainian now. Is defined the word courage. If I've never seen anything like it, that's it right there. There's a shirt that I see sometimes people wearing that says "Fight like Ukrainian," and it's. I hope that they understand that there's a real meaning behind that, and I hope that the world understands in as much capacity as possible just the goodness that you're doing. Do you ever think about the impact post-war? At one point, hopefully this will all end, and you'll still have a mission, of course, like you said, for years to come. But to look back on this and think about the pride of what you've done, how you've helped.
Well, we are changing the picture of the country. We are changing the way the country gonna look like after the war.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of people without limbs, we're gonna see people with cool prosthetics, and people, won't be walking around with wounds. They will be walking around with scars. They'll be okay to share their stories and talk about experience they've been through. So we are literally changing the picture of this country after the war, and we definitely believe that if kids gonna be raised surrounded by superhumans, not by victims, is gonna be different trajectory for Ukrainian development. So what we do, we build another future for Ukraine just by changing the picture of Ukraine.
Yeah. There are so many stigmas that go with things. I mean, I remember being young and having a broken arm, and I was nervous about getting a cast put on my arm, about what it would be, how I would operate, to be one, but then how people would view me, and then people started writing their names on the cast, and it became this fun thing. And you're really changing this persona, and turning people from the idea that they're not victims, they're superhuman now, and that's a big psychological change, shift for them to be able to continue with this sense of purpose as they move forward through their treatment and then on post treatment into maintaining their lives. And the person that you spoke of who didn't tell his mom yet, but he's had a business and he's doing all these big normal life things that most people with who haven't experienced this can't do. Just amazing, the work that you guys are doing. And then as we get ready to kind of close down, there's one more question I wanted to ask, kind of about the technology of war, from a perspective that the Ukrainian armed forces started in defense, and from that they innovated in the ways that have changed completely the way the war looks on the ground, mainly through the use of drones. And there are entire portions of cities and maybe even villages on their own that are completely covered in these fiber optic control lines that they use. Traditional war, conventional war, has a well-known documentation of what injuries and what things are come out of that. How the Ukrainians have defended the nation and everyone has changed that. And now you've got a higher frequency of attacks, a higher frequency of injuries, a higher frequency of other things that are going on, loss of equipment, et cetera. Have you guys have experienced how you've had to adapt to that because there's a faster influx of injury versus what a conventional war generally would have? And how have you adapted?
Absolutely. We observing the change in the trauma structure. Everything we learned before, the reaction to the trauma, what do you do with a wounded person, everything we knew about golden hour of evacuation doesn't work in Ukraine. We don't have golden hour of evacuation. Our evacuation lasts, hours, sometimes days. Russians are shelling our doctors. Doctors are the first target for Russians. If they kill the doctor can save less lives. So evacuation lasts sometimes days, like I said. So you got the patient that you have to cut high because of the tourniquet syndrome. A lot of issues. At the beginning of the war, most of the cases were trauma of the lower limbs because people were stepping on mines. It
Mm.
was a lot of bullet and gunshots. Now, majority of people are getting trauma, due to drones. So it's upper limbs, it's face, it's their head, it's brain injuries, and it's very different. It's less gunshots. So you have to adapt all the time, and you have to adjust to the new situation. You just in a constant contact with the front lines and train your team to to do different things in a different way and react in a different way to the trauma that you get. So it's very changing context over these four
Yeah.
years.
Unfathomable to me, how much it takes, both from a personal directive and from an organizational directive, to accomplish the things that you guys have. And so I think any last parting words for us as non-combat leaders? I would like to take a lesson from you in terms of what makes me a better leader. And you've said many things, from saying no, which I think was awesome. I think many people need to do better at that, and to have more courage. But is there something that you regularly tell people who are like, "How do I be more like you?"
Well, I mean, I don't know. Basically, you just have to know what you want, how you want that, and basically that's like what I'm doing, why I'm doing that, and for whom I'm doing that. So if you start with basic questions, when you have the answers for the basic questions, everything happens. I think that most of our problems comes because we don't understand what we want, how we want, and why we are doing that, and what is our biggest goal, and where we are heading. And I think that when you have the answers and when you truly believe in your mission, when you like what you do, everything is different. And you don't have to have war for that. But just keep in mind, if we can do what we have done during the war, you can do anything.
Yeah.
It's just like anyone can do anything in a peaceful situation, because Ukrainians are still doing that during the full scale invasion under rocket attacks. So there is no excuses for the rest of the world. And did we believe we can do that? No. Of course, if somebody would tell me 5 years ago that we would be balancing rocket attacks, deaths, beloved ones at the front lines, building hospitals, providing services, finding millions of dollars for your operations, I would say no, I wouldn't be able to do that. We needed war for that, but you don't necessarily need a war for that. Now, to be your true self and to do what surprisingly could do. You don't need a
Yeah.
war for that. You don't need a crisis for that. So don't wait for crisis. Just find the answers. What are you doing? Why are you doing that? For whom you are doing that? And find your way. Say no
Mhm.
to things that don't take you closer to your dream, and just keep moving. Everything is possible, and you don't need to have a war uh, for this day to be the last day of your life. I'm sorry to say that,
Yeah,
but we
that's
can
true.
overlive most of the people in the world. You don't have to have a war
Yeah.
to feel that it's the last day of your life. So just live as it's the last day of your life.
Yeah. There are people who say that all the time. I'll get to it when I get to it, or I need to do X, Y, and Z before I get there. And it's just, no, take charge, go do it now.
Time is
Cause
now.
you
Time is
live,
now.
yeah, you live right now. This is the moment. There's a saying that no, tomorrow is gone. That's irrelevant. Uh, or tomorrow hasn't arrived yet. Yesterday is gone. That doesn't matter. Only matter is what's right now. And,
Absolutely.
you're really,
Absolutely.
really, exemplifying that and demonstrating that. Olga, thank you so very, very much for joining me today. I do appreciate, above all things, all that you do. And on behalf of everyone that's behind the scenes on this show, thank you for what you do for all of us and for Ukraine. We will pray for you and for Ukraine as always. I think it's very fitting to say Slava Ukraina. And I hope that glory comes to Ukraine in all facets. And if people feel the need and have the urge and desire to support you, we will be putting the links for the Superhumans website and all the ways that they can donate and everything that you've explained in our descriptions, and we'll post those on media as well. And hopefully we'll be able to talk with you and see all of the great things you're doing again in the future. And again, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. Please stand with Ukraine, and thanks for taking time to talk about what's happening in Ukraine now.
Always. Thank you so much.
Thank you.